What's up, everybody? Welcome to Inside the Seams, where we bring hitters and pitchers together to talk about the game so it can grow. I'm really excited about this episode. You're going to love it. Let's keep going. What's up, y'all? Welcome to Inside the Seams, where we bring hitters and pitchers together to just talk about baseball and softball and help everyone become just a better player and mainly a better human.
That's all that's worth doing, because it's like if you spend your time trying to figure it out, right? It's like I always talk to the players about this, and it's like if you expect other people to live by your rules, but you've never set what those rules are, it's like it'd be like you sat down and you played a board game and you expect other people to know how to play, but you never told them how to play.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can sit there and roll the dice and you can move the things, but you're never really going to get a good strategy unless you understand, like even in a relationship where it's like, okay, rules, like,
yeah,
we have unestablished rules, but things that we've had mutual where it's like we always keep in contact, where it's like, I think there, maybe a week could go by, but never probably more than a week goes by and one of us is sending each other a text, like, even if it's just like, what's up, brother, love you, hope everything's good, and it's like, and I have a small circle of people like that. But I treasure that circle because, like, those guys, we all know. And but at the same time, if you didn't text me for 2 months or 3 months, I'm not going to sit in the corner and cry and be like, oh, Cam hates me. What's his problem? And it's like so many times I see that where it's like people have issues with each other. And it's like, well, you guys never even laid out the rules of this relationship or this game, where it's like, without establishing that, how are we supposed to help each other? How are we supposed to stoke each other? Where it's like, I think as a coach too, it's like setting your boundaries, but also establishing some lines. But then other than that, like seeing what they do, let them be. It's been so refreshing to be out on a field, just like every day. And it's like, and I've, I was in my backyard for 7 years. And I had some field time during that. And then I was in the facility for, it's probably been, 6 years. Or in October, I guess it will be. So it's like 5.5 years. But now to go back outside, it's just like, it's like a zooed up animal that got put back in the wild.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But it kind of has like an island atmosphere out there.
It's always what you've said, though. Since I've known you, that's what you've said you wanted it to be. You've always said that.
Factory Island. Yeah, and that's why, like, this thing's worked so good. It's a no-brainer for me, just the way it makes me feel at a soul level.
Good.
I'm right where I want to be right now. There's nowhere else on the planet I'd rather be versus sitting there and being like, oh man, what am I doing right now?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Talking to 14 parents and 6 people doing this and that, and then everybody, whatever. Everybody can have their opinions, but it's like, unless I'd ask you for advice, I could care less what your opinion is.
That's right.
I mean, you might have something to offer, there might be something, but
it just goes back to what we always talk about. People just assume, well, it's a little thing, and it's like, those are the only things that matter. Most people don't really screw up the big things really bad.
Well, because baseball's not complicated.
No, it never has been.
Ever. We like to think it is sometimes. But yeah, to me, it's relationships. We were talking about it last time, and it's like, the day that I'm coaching robots, all I'll use is technology and whatever. But I'm coaching humans, and technology is very relatable. Like Tarek Skubal with the Tigers, working with him, he really likes the TrackMan stuff. Gives him something measurable, and it gives him something to kind of see where he's at.
Yeah.
But he's also at the point where it's like, this guy's on the cusp of being a big league all-star. And for him, those sandpaper things, it takes that as well as a good set of these. So it's like a combination of the two is phenomenal. But if you just have one, or if like you're walking in and it's just like, whatever they like to say, their sarcasm, I'm like, to me, that's just protecting something that's uncovered in their past. 100%. Somebody coached them that way. Somebody made them feel bad or uncomfortable or whatever, which I'm all for uncomfortable, but
Not
it's
that
not
kind.
going to be not going to be on the relationship level though, and it's not
Hmm.
going to be you coming in and I'm making fun of you to make other people laugh or to make myself look cool. It's going to
That's it.
be pumping tires. How was your day? Now, when we're out there, yeah, it's great, but it's I love that kids feel like they can come up and talk to me.
And they do.
Even my own kids being a parent, right? Whereas
Yeah.
like you see other coaches and they're scared to walk up and talk to them. I was doing a camp with Sidearm Nation last week, and we had some guys, and there's just some old school, and I
Hmm.
love old school, but there's some old school guys that these kids have a hard time relating to or talking to.
Yeah.
And then I'll walk up and whatever you want to call it, they can walk up and they can talk to me. Or it's like,
I can
hey,
smell it. Yeah. I can smell
this
it.
guy can say, hey, does anybody have questions? And there's going to be no questions because he's already made you feel stupid for just walking in,
Yeah.
just for being there. So how would you put yourself out there again in that way? You
You
know?
wouldn't. You
Mm.
wouldn't. I mean, dude,
I would.
it's
I would. That's why, like to me, it's a turn
when
off
you're
to even be
tough
around.
too, right? You're not just some like random guy. Like you're tough mentally and all the stuff. It's like you're tough. You're not a pussy, right? So it's like if that would be your same reaction, it's like what do you think somebody who's not there even close would do?
Or that's looking for like approval. Let's say I'm walking in there and I'm
Mm,
looking for kind of approval or some kind of something that checks that box, for a dude, because we all have that where it's like,
hmm.
am I enough? That's literally like our strive as a male, right? And it's with a kid, you got to realize, hey, first of all, we're coaching. Well, a majority of the time, we're coaching males, right? And we're coaching young males that we have no idea what they have going on outside of the field or
Hmm.
outside of the facility, right? When they walk in, they might have just had a terrible day at school. They might have had a great day at school. Their girlfriend might have broke up with them. Their parents might be getting a divorce. We have no idea what's happening.
Yeah.
And to have that approach of like talking smack as they walk in and taking them down a level, just it fires me up, dude.
Yeah.
So
I'm with you. I'm
say
with
it
you.
to me. I'm like, go ahead, say that to me. Because it's like, first of all, I don't give two shits what you say. But
Hmm.
second of all, I could slap you silly so fast that you'd have
Hmm.
no idea that it even happened.
Yeah. That's
And
right.
these kids aren't going to do that, and they can't do that, and that's why it's like it's almost like miniature bullying.
That's
Where
100% what it is. It's no different. It's just the accepted kind now, right? Dude, it's so funny you were talking about this. Like my brain just like conversation's so cool for me. It just like makes my brain like, unwind and do a lot of really cool things. And man, there was a camp that I did a couple years ago with some big time guys. And I mean, in the hitting world, like really, really good, really, really big time guys. And, um, I remember typically in a camp setting, it's in a big camp setting, there's 150 kids there, 200 kids there, something like that, right? It's huge. And so in that setting, it's hard to get one-on-one connection for most people, hard to, get some back and forth going. But for me, it's not, right? Because we're wired very similar to that, right? That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for those connection
some
pieces. And
engagement, yeah.
yeah, and man, like it was crazy. Like I remember like speaking in front of the group to the older guys, and I said, look, like this is an opportunity of a lifetime for you because you have so many cool guys here that actually care. So like if you don't understand something, say it. Like it doesn't matter if it sounds good, it doesn't matter if he talked about this on Instagram and it helped the pro guy. It doesn't matter. If you don't understand, say something because like this will only help you as much as you allow it to, and you have to allow for understanding to happen. And like man, I feel like I'm a outliner, in the baseball realm, if I'm being honest, and um, like everybody just wants to talk about the mechanics and the swing and all that stuff, right? Where we've talked about before, the pitching side, where it's just like, oh, just whatever, and like, I'm just so the opposite, right? I'm like, hey, like I can talk mechanics with anybody. Like, you want to talk mechanics? Let me know. Like, I can nerd out on that all day, but it's not about that, right? And so it was funny, like. So essentially, we were all in cages, and then the groups were rotating to us. There was like four or five, six in each group, and so it was like a high school, college pro thing. And so we didn't necessarily have to worry about them paying attention. And so they were like, if we go talk to a guy, they'd record us talking, and like it was a really cool thing, right? And so there's guys on either end of me that are both more touted, have a better resume, all the stuff, right? And they're good, man. They're good at what they do. And we get in the cage, and I see what I see. I have my perspective when it comes from the swing and the mechanics and the movement side and all that stuff. And so I'm talking to this kid, and I'm like, hey, essentially, like I feel like it was almost like his chest was getting in the way, like, and his back hip was getting in the way, right, to where he could never come this way. And so I was kind of talking to him about like you got to move to where like this can move freely, and your chest could go get the ball if it had to, right? Or the same thing back here, right? Or the bat speed's got to happen to where, you know, even if you make contact back here, you still have a chance for a hit. And he, I was explaining it, and I thought I communicated it pretty well, but I was like, does that make sense? And he goes, no. I was like, perfect. How can I explain that better? He's like, I just don't understand this part, this, like how this can, I was like, awesome. And like, we just talked for 2 or 3 more minutes. And then he was like, oh, okay, I get it. So you're saying this. And I was like, no, I'm saying boom, 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 boom. And then that will happen without you trying. He was like, oh, okay, well, how do I get there easily? And it was just a different conversation. And then I watched that same group go to the next cage, not the same kind of communication going on. Right. And it's
Lost.
just
Yeah,
like,
like staring into a headlights.
yeah, and it's just, well, do what I say. I say, this, and most hitting pitching coaches, it's do this, do this, do this, and you're doing this wrong and whatever. When in reality, most times when we see something that's wrong, it's not what we see. It's that we're seeing that something is wrong, but we don't know what's wrong, right? We know what they're doing wrong. We don't know what's causing it. And man, like it was crazy to watch, like all this stuff, like transpire. Kid walks in, I like talk to him. He's like a pro guy, and I was like, "Hey man, how you feeling, man?" Like whatever. Introduce myself, and I was like, "What are you trying to do? Like, can I watch or anything?" I was like, "I don't think I'll be able to get into the cage because I just don't think I will be able to, but I can watch stuff from over here. If there's anything you want me to watch, like let me know, and I can give you some feedback after." Because it was kind of like the gauntlet of coaches that were there, and hey, let's chop it up and fix everybody's swing. And he was like, "Man, I'm kind of hungover. I'm sore. It's been a hard week. And I just had some emotional stuff kind of going on, me and my girl." And she's like, "Man, I think I just want to like get some reps in and, obviously like work on some stuff, but I want to take some stuff off the machine, go 50, 60%, just really like kind of have a day and where I can really work on just the cleanness of stuff and not necessarily the movements." Right. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, so I was like, if I see anything that sticks out, I'll holler at you. But I was like, I think that's a great focus, especially where you're at. Takes 4 swings in the cage, and everybody's got a fix. Everybody's got this, and you got major league hitting like coaches, not like minor league, like major league guys that are over here like telling them this stuff. And what 22-year-old isn't going to listen to somebody who won a World Series? Like they're going to listen to him. And
Mm.
but you see there and you watch the numbers go. We're very similar, feel first, eyes, all that other stuff, but I'm watching the numbers go like this and this and this and this. And it's just like that's the problem that I see in the coaching realm. And then baseball in real like reality, it's like because then those same people be like, "Oh, we have the freedom to figure it out." And I'm sitting here going like nobody's holding those people accountable to be like, "Where's the freedom in that? You just said there's freedom to figure that out. Where's the freedom? Where is that?" Because I'm telling you right now, like I'm a hitting guy, and there ain't no freedom in that. There's do this, do this, do this. Well, no, I don't work that way. No, like that doesn't help me. No, like no. But you can never, for most people, you can never have that interaction. And I
Well,
sit
because so
here and
many people would be like, "That's uncoachable," and it's like, well, to me, and I have a very good buddy who's an excellent pitching coach, and he's writing a book, and it's called Uncoachable,
Mm,
and how it's a good thing to be uncoachable because you have your own feels and your
I love it.
own, but it's sometimes looked at as a bad thing because I
Yeah,
remember when Libby went to Team USA stuff, and I had a coach that somebody said he was uncoachable, and I'm like, is he uncoachable or is he just like a player and you let him play? Because you're trying to coach too much. I mean, you're going to coach him after seeing him throw one time,
literally,
like
man.
like especially with and I think that's why I have some credibility with the big league guys too, because it's like even though I never pitched in the big leagues, I'm watching guys and I have the ability to watch. I
Yeah.
have the ability to have a conversation. I have the ability to listen.
Mm,
And I think that that's the difference where it's
it
like
is.
most of these guys that come in, it's like, hey, are you working on anything now? Some of them will be like, no. Some will be like, yes. Some of them might be working on something, but they're so used to saying no because of the system that it's different. But then once they get to know you, 2, 3 times in, that's usually when I'll start to say something. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
for
hey, have
sure.
you ever thought about this? Or hey, what's your thoughts on a lot of times it's what's your thoughts on your front side? What's your front
Mm,
side do? And for me, I teach the front side does 3 things. It creates direction, buys time, and then it gets out of the way.
yeah.
And I could see that, or it's the same thing. It's from the martial arts where it's a
Yeah,
wing
yeah,
block, it's a
yeah.
capture, and then it's a boom.
Mm-hmm. Deliver, yeah. That's good.
But there's different angles and there's different ways for guys to see that or feel that. And unless I'm aware of what they're feeling or what they're thinking about, who am I to say what it should look like?
Yeah, that's so good. And I
Even
think
if
what's
a
dude,
thousand waves crash, right?
yes, that's so good.
You ever
Gosh,
go to the
dude,
beach and tell a wave how to crash? Or you just sit there and you watch it and you appreciate
that's
it.
so good.
Sometimes you'll go jump in it and enjoy it and experience it. But I think it takes a different mindset to sit back and be like, wow, there's something beautiful there. Like there's a
Yeah,
reason this guy pitches at this level. Now,
yeah.
seeing him over and over and over again, and you can notice, okay, the good ones crash like this, the off ones, there's kind of
Mm-hmm.
a variance or a deviation that you'd never see in nature.
I love that, dude. Gosh, that's so good, man. It's just, it's incredible, man. It's and I think like truly like, man, baseball has given me the privilege to meet some incredible people. Be in some circles that I never thought I would be in, realistically, and um, man, like I can honestly say I don't. There are not very many people that can. People don't have the perspective like me and you on this. They just don't. They don't. They don't get it. Um, it's like it's one of those things where like I was talking to some guys at the ABCA, and we were talking about. They were like asking me questions about communication and whatever. That's always what everybody wants to talk to me about is like communication aspect, which is fine. I'll talk to them about it. I think that's the only word that people have for the kinds of things like me and you are trying to do,
Yeah,
right? Is like,
whatever
oh,
you call this. Yeah,
yeah,
whatever you call what we're
yeah.
doing.
And he said like, what do you do when you see something and they don't see it, but their swing is good? And I was like, I'm gonna give you a general answer because I don't know, like every situation is gonna be a little bit different. But I would leave it. And he was like, kind of like looked at me, and I was like, dude, like my experience has been. In life, I think life starts up here, then everything works down. Like baseball's underneath life. People don't buy into that. They they there's not ever been the level of buy-in that you could get from just being told that you have to, right? And you said something that I'll remember forever. When you were like, I would run through a brick wall for my coach because that's just how it was when we were there. But I would have run through more walls if I knew why. And I was like, dude, like there's just when there's self buy-in and self reality and self actuation, it's completely different. They'll listen to anything that you want to say. Anybody will. Right? If they get to a point or somebody gets to a point where, they're like, hey, I'm pretty fucked up, they'll listen. Right? Like, dude, I can't tell you how many times like I've gone on these quest events and like you got billionaires sitting here and like it's the same shit. It sounds the same. It doesn't sound any different, right? And they get to a point where like, yeah, I'm pretty fucked up and I do this and I'm all a facade and I'm all this and like at that point when they get there, completely different than if now like I'm a pretty blunt person, especially when it comes to some of those people. I don't put up with people's bullshit, especially when they're blaming other people and stuff, right? But um so I won't necessarily let people run out of the corner, right? But I'm not gonna force you into a corner, if that makes sense, right? So it's like
Absolutely. I feel
I'll
like it's a victim card though, right? Like
yes.
some people want to play their victim card and then exactly what you're saying. I like to see and I'll sit back and watch until somebody's ready to listen.
Yeah,
And when are
you
they
have
ready to
to.
listen? Either A, when they fail,
Hmm.
right? They mess up, or they've already hit this wall and then they develop enough trust that they can say, hey, this is something that I deal with.
Hmm.
What's your thoughts on this?
Yes.
And then it can come in because it's like I'll never give advice unless it's asked for because I've done it enough in the past to learn that unless somebody's hungry or wants what you're about to say,
Yeah.
why even say it? Because sometimes it can rub people the wrong way, or
100%.
sometimes you just waste, like for me, it's energy. Why would I waste my beautiful energy on you who already has this figured out?
Yeah.
I'm going to wait for that process to go the other way, and it will in this game because the game exposes you just like life, right? And it's like once you're exposed, now it's time where you're like, hey, can you help?
Yeah.
And since I'm invited in, now we can party. But
Literally.
if,
It's
but
the
if I'm sitting
brain.
there knocking on the door saying, let
Yes.
me in, let me in, let me in, let me in, let me in, who's going to listen to that? You're like, yeah, sure, I might open the door, but I'm not listening. I mean, it's the same thing with your kids, right? It's like if you were to sit there and just jaw, 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 jaw. I mean, how many times are they going to really want to come to you with something that's real? It's like you're jawing about something that doesn't even exist yet.
Hmm.
Like you're creating problems in your own mind before it even starts. And the problems you're creating are worse than what could even happen in the game.
Yeah, that's right. It's so good.
That was you put me off on a tangent there, but it's that where it's like unless they fail, what are they really gonna listen to? Especially like young guys dealing with enough young like high school guys, like there's that fine line between like, hey, I got this figured out between the lines,
Hmm.
and like in practice being like hungry to find a better feel or something.
Hmm.
Where I know in boxing they say it where it's like train like a contender, fight like a champion.
Mm.
Where it's just a different mindset, but you're hungry for that. I mean, it's the same thing like when we have conversations, right? Like it's like you said earlier, it's the same thing for me. It stimulates my brain when we talk
Mm.
about things because it's like number one, I know I have the free space from all the way here to Texas with no judgment. I could say anything I want, and you'll listen to it. You may or may not agree with it. You may find some truth in it, but either way, you're gonna listen and hear me out. And then I think it's the same way where it's like whatever you say. First of all, I want to hear it. Like there's a want to, and and it feeds our tanks, man.
Yeah, it does. And I think that's just how it is, right? That's just how everything stems down to when you're talking about communicating, when you're talking about like anything with it, especially with players, right? Like people just think that baseball's a different peacock. And in reality, it's got different feathers, maybe from a different part of the world, but man, it's still a peacock, right? And it comes down to like people will when you invite them into an environment where they don't have to, like man, I wish people could come watch Angel Sanchez do a bullpen with you.
He's
Like it's
throwing 97 right now, by the way.
I know, dude. Like
He's down there doing it. Like I got a feeling he may come back and go have one heck of a year.
you think so? Has he
Mm-hmm.
signed yet?
He's still with the Padres.
Hmm. Good. But it's like people would people would not believe it. like when they watch these bullpens, and it's like that's how it should be. That's what Angel needs, right? Or like Bo might be a little bit different. Libby's going to be a little bit different, but that's the whole chameleon thing. But it's like it doesn't change what you see. It doesn't change what's going on. But when you're invited into that, it's just like, I mean, I remember, hey, what do you need from me today? I just kind of want to, this Angel, just gonna kind of touch and feel a little bit. That's it. They threw for like 12 minutes. That's it.
Well, then
And
that
it's like,
sets the precedence for me too. Like, what am I going to say during that session? Because it's his. I mean, it's the same thing. Like, and you're right. The different guys come in and they're working on different stuff. Whereas, like, because Bo threw yesterday or Tuesday, whatever day it is,
yeah, it's fair.
and he's up there and he's got a plan. You know, when they walk in, they have a plan, and you're just there to help them do it right or give
Yeah.
them a some kind of feedback or accountability, and then to get them whatever, you know, for me, whatever angles of video that guy's like.
Yeah.
Like some guys like to see side, some guys like the behind, some guys like the in front. I like them all. I like all those angles, and I think
Hmm.
they all have value. So it's like I'll pop around, but I'll make sure if there's something they want, I get that for them because it's their career.
Yeah.
It's not my career,
Hmm.
right? And I think
Well, I think,
there's a blurred line there sometimes where I think you can get lost in and just realize that it's theirs. And if it's ownership, it's like we've talked about before. You're going to teach somebody to drive. Eventually, you got to get out of the driver's seat. Like when I learned how to drive, I remember I was sitting on my grandpa's lap,
yeah.
and I was probably 12 years old up in the two tracks up in northern Michigan, right? And I had done that enough times, but then eventually he had to get out of the seat and say, "Okay, now you're driving." And that's the same thing with these young bucks when you're coaching them. It's like, hey, I'd rather have you go out there and fail driving the truck yourself, maybe whatever, go off the road,
Hmm.
than to just never be able to have been handed that.
Yeah. Well, that's where I don't know. I wanted to ask you this because we've talked about it a lot, but I think there's a lot of value in that other people haven't heard. So like with when it comes to like the pro off season, besides for you, besides the fact that you're insanely busy 24/7, with all that stuff, like what does a pro off season look like when they like from when they come to you, right? From the pitching, the coaching side, right? Like as a like how do you approach that, right? Like Taiwo comes in and like he starts and then you know, okay, I've got him, for 60 days, 90 days, whatever it is, like and when they start is going to look a little bit different, right? So how have you found like just like tangible ways of like looking at pro guys and then like being able to project forward, hey, this is his plan, this is what we talked about, this is what he feels like he needs to get better at. How do I do everything that you've already said, but also partner that with his plan, right? Because you said Bo has a plan, right? So he wants to do this or like whatever. And what kind of stemmed that question for me is I watched Dansby Swanson started putting out a bunch of stuff on YouTube. It's super cool. He pretty much films all his sessions with the hitting guy that he works with, and they were talking about different things. And I think this might have been from December, like middle of December, maybe this clip, and his coach said, "You're way ahead of where I would think you would be in December. This where you're at now is where like I would think you would be like almost into January, right?" And so I thought that was like super cool language. Um, so how do you like when it comes to like these pro guys and you have so many of them, how do you do that as a coach and know like the process of their 90-day process and then like taking them into the, spring training and all that stuff? What does that look like? How do you do that?
That's a good question. I would say originally it starts when they first come in and talking about the season. How'd the season go? What worked? What did you struggle with? And then what does the organization have in mind for you, right? Like, especially with younger guys like a Brock, right? Prospect guy. And some teams do a really good job with this, giving guys off-season plans. Other guys are more reliant on me. But I think, starting off with that original conversation of, okay, what's our goals for the off-season? And then starting to etch that out. Typically, it's going to be 2 days a week to start off for bullpens, right? Once they start sloping, like a Tuesday, Friday. And then moving up further, it'll be bullpen Tuesday, lives on Fridays to kind of ramp them up. But I think for me, January is always volume month. So like getting a lot of the throwing in and working on stuff. Because once you get there, it happens so fast, right? Where it's like, now it's time to get out. So like if you're trying to refine a pitch, like let's say one of your goals is to make your changeup a little bit better, you want a little more depth on it, then that's something that we're going to focus on. But then once we get back into spring training mode, now it's just go get outs.
Yeah, that's great.
So I think part of that is also kind of, to stay with that question, is the initial, how was the season? How's everything that gone? And then back shape everything from when they leave. So like when we know when they leave, it's like, okay, well, I'd like to have 4 to 5 lives before I leave. Even though I know when I get there, my first bullpen is going to be 25 fastball only, or fastball change, right? Because it's a parachute when you get there. And I've seen it enough times where it's like, we'll get guys ramped up to a point, then they're going to go get a parachute on, and then they're going to go and take off and go into the season again. But I think without that big volume month of January for guys, I think they can go into spring training and they're not ready. Which really back in the day was accepted, right? Like a lot of the older, especially established guys, they weren't going to spring training to gain a job or to earn a job. Their job was already there. They had their roster spot. They go into it different than a kid who's, let's say you have a free agent guy, or that's going to be a totally different landscape because we've got to ramp them up to be ready to get signed right now.
That's really good.
That's probably another element that goes in there, right?
Mm-hmm. I love that. So that was another question I wanted to ask. You were saying one of your guys just got signed, which is super cool. I was kind of reading about his story and stuff a little bit too. So how do you deal with that, right? So if there's people out there, there's coaches out there that are working with minor league guys, or it's just so tumultuous, right? It's year to year on so many things, and especially once you get past 24, 25, right? It's year to year and not a ton of loyalty. So how do you the process so well, that's why I think asking this question is super important to you. How do you coach a guy through what you just laid out, but also knowing that they're not signed? How do you specifically and tangibly monitor that? And kind of, yeah, like do both, right? Because it's, there's a lot that goes into it. So how have you found to do that well?
Well, I think it's a great question too, with the mentality of it too, because there's a certain pressure that comes with being a free agent, right? Where it's like you really want to play, but all of a sudden you don't have a job. Now there's this uncontrollable factor that is there, and you have to recognize that, I think, because some guys it lights a fire. Some guys get more scared about it.
Yeah.
Right. But I think it's putting together a plan and then getting them ready we're about to have a free agent workout here in a couple of weeks, and getting guys ready to show for that. We've already had a couple guys sign this off season, and it's just a steeper ramp up, like quicker.
That's good. That's really good.
But I think too, I mean, it depends on the guy too, like what's their needs. Some guys are a free agent because maybe they lost velo, or they lost command, or there's certain things where it's like, okay, if there was something to refine here, what is it? So initially, I think we got to hit that, where it's like, okay, we got to clean up a couple things. Now that we've cleaned up a couple things, which is typically getting back to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like especially, let's say I'm dealing with a major league free agent guy or a guy coming off injuries, which happens a lot, right? Like guys coming off a Tommy John or nerve or shoulder, whatever it is, they have to break through the initial injury thoughts
Yeah.
and get that out of their head where they're healthy and there's all that. It's like a let go, right? Or taking the brakes off. Once we take the brakes off, now having some conversations and relationships are important. There's a lot of scouts that know what we do and trust what we do, and we'll have conversation where it's like, and I'll always shoot guys straight where it's like, hey, when he came in, I saw this, and this. We kind of refixed this or refound this. Tell me what you think, or hey, you've scouted this guy for 10 years. What's your thoughts? And they're like, well, he's good at this and this, but he struggles with this. And it's like that helps me because now we can go in and maybe see, let's say he used to have a hard time with fastball command. And now all of a sudden you come watch him and he's bat, 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 bat. And it's like, okay, well, what'd you change? And a lot of times it's like, well, we focused on his breath. We got him a little more calm before the pitch. Fast, faster, fastest, whatever the thing is that clicked for him. And then all of a sudden those scouts take pride in their work, right? Like any scout you talk to, they can tell you, hey, I remember the first time I saw that guy, my report was this, because that's their thing, right? And then if you can change what they used to see, that's a good thing, right? Because I mean, they have good eyes for what they do, especially I'm talking like good baseball scouts here, not just some signing guys because they got 7,000 RPMs or something. But it's when you can see something and you're like, hey, or let's say the guy had an injury and then he had a couple bad seasons because he was fighting through it and battling through it. And it's like, well, hey, he's healthy. And sometimes healthy just means that they can let go again. And then all of a sudden they see it, or it's, might be the smoothness, or, hey, sometimes it's, hey, we think he needs to drop arm slot. What do you think about that? And then we dive into, there's so many fun little rabbit holes, but you see different guys hold on different ways, or, hey, he used to be just a fastball slider guy, but now he's got to learn something else. And that's when guys reinvent themselves. And I think that's the cool part about what I do is seeing guys go through a season and then maybe reinvented themselves, and all of a sudden, hey, they get a shot, or they do get re-signed, or all of a sudden, hey, now they're playing over in Taiwan, or they got some cool opportunity, and it's because they never gave up. They kept going. They believed in themselves, but they also were able to say, hey, I need help. And I think sometimes as ball players, we get into trouble because I got this. I got this. I just got a message from a guy the other day, and it was funny. I've yet to meet him, but he works out with one of my other guys who's plays in the big leagues. Nasty guy. But he writes me on Instagram, and he's like, blah, 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 blah. So-and-so sent me your way. I've realized that me and my iPhone can't fix this stuff on our own. And I'm like, sometimes you have to admit that, because it's like, if you literally think, like I say it myself, coaches need coaches.
Oh yeah.
Like there's guys that I still talk to my college pitching coach, but I mean, there's other guys that I respect where it's like, I threw 100 pitches yesterday off the slope. I'm still training, right? And when I send my video to people, I send it to people because I want to have an outside perspective that I trust give me what they see through their lens.
Yeah.
Other than just, me continually watching myself over and over. I mean, you get lost in it sometimes.
I think that's a trap, right? Like, because that reverberates you into the hamster wheel, when in reality, it's like, get it out to as many people as possible. That will prevent you from getting too deep into the rabbit,
it's like
too deep
accountability too, right? And I almost look at it like relationship with God, where it's like, if I feel like I'm the one in control here and I'm doing everything and I'm fixing it, and it's like, it's a totally different mindset than it's like, hey, I believe I'm provided for, I'm whatever you want to say, but it's like, instead of feeling like I got to do everything on my own. It's like, no, I can give this, I can give this up, and then I can trust.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that we're anything in that realm, but it's like we're mentors, we're guides,
Hmm.
right? Now, sometimes guys think that we can fix them. We can't fix them. They fix themselves,
That's
right?
right.
Like I can ask a right question. I can teach somebody how to think, but I never want to tell somebody how to think. I want to teach them how to think, right? It's like the old famous, it's one of my favorite things to tell guys is like when they first come in or when parents first come in, it's like, I'm going to teach your son how to fish. You could come here and I could just, here you go. Here's a beautiful fish. I already caught it today. You can eat it, you know, whatever. It'd be different than if I actually taught you how to line up your pole and how to tie on a lure and how to cast a pole. And it's like, if you can learn how to fish on your own, you're going to be way better off in the future than if I just keep handing it to you.
It's the only
And I
way.
think that's something you do too, right? Where
Hmm.
you feed their thoughts, you feed their soul, you feed their heart space, right?
Yeah.
And then the things start to blossom with their swing.
Hmm.
Because we both know it's more than same with pitching, right? I always tell guys pitching is art.
Oh,
Pitching is
100%.
an expression of you and who you are in this moment at this time. And as long as we know that as coaches, it's like it's their art and learn how to appreciate their art versus like, here's my cookie cutter. This is how everything has to fit inside this box for you to be good.
Hmm. And I think anytime anybody does that in any vein, all it any leader, mentor, coach, whatever, anytime it's that is their approach, which you just mentioned the last part. That's 100%. Anytime I hear that, see that, that's 100% a control thing and a you thing. That's 100%. And what I wish people had the courage to say is, hey, I'm only good with talking about it this way because I haven't explored other things and I don't have enough courage or belief or confidence for there to be other ways to get there. So that's what you're going to get. I wish people would just say that, right? It doesn't sell, so people won't say it.
And that's too real.
It's too real. People can't handle that because like it just it's mind-boggling. And baseball is such a catechism for other issues, but it's mind-boggling that people that's the deal, right? And that they can't see it, they won't see it, and it's one of those things where it's like it works, but it has strings and it has limitations. I like to say like it's like a rope. Hard work, the doing the small things. And I hate that term, but you know what I'm saying when I say hard work, like putting the
Mm-hmm.
time in, like struggle,
Mm-hmm.
like failure after failure after failure after failure. What it does is it just adds a knot, adds an extension to the rope that is your talent. And everybody's talent rope is different. And so, the difference is like when you do that, now you're never really going to run out of space on your rope because it's just going to keep going and that's growth. That's the difference between growth and more, in my opinion. More is just how do I make this rope more when there isn't anything else. It is what it is. You have to
Still
add
the
to
same
it.
rope. We have to
It's the
still the
same
same
rope.
rope.
And like that's what you see when these people they bounce around to all different things. And I look at somebody like Alex Bregman, and not everybody likes Alex, which is fine. Like, he is the way he is, an ultimate competitor. The older I get, the more I did this entrepreneurial journey and all this stuff. I tend to like the people that a lot of people don't in some veins when it comes to like Michael Jordan or Kobe or because they're just ultimate competitors, man. And yeah, they maybe shouldn't have said it that way. It was wrong, but anyway, so he is the way, but he's been with his same hitting coach since like high school, and now like he's gone other places to train, but his hitting coach comes with him because
Mm.
there's a constant, hey, let's look for more. Let's grow. Let's do this. Let's expand the horizon, and it's incredible to watch. Like that doesn't happen. People change hitting coaches, pitching coaches every every off season. And I get it, right? Certain people focus on other things. You want to get more of that, and that's great. But there's something to somebody that is willing to grow and just continues to add length to the rope and not just going to find a new rope to see if it's longer than the one that you found before. It's like, well, hey, shut up and tie it, and then it's great, like, but
I
that's
love
not
that.
that's not the whole that's not the deal, right? The deal is go to REI and find well, this rope didn't work how I wanted it to, so I'm going to buy this rope. And it's like, no, shut up, like figure out what that rope does and tie it too, and
Yeah,
then
time together.
tie them together, right? And I think like that's you can always tell when somebody's talking like what we're talking about, right? Where it's like cookie cutter or this is our programmer. You got to have a skeleton. I get that. Like even you said, hey, I want to three things with the front side. We always want to see that happen, right? But like if you have 10,000 people, there's been 10,000 different ways to get people there, right?
Mhm.
So it's just when it's cookie cutter, it's almost always 100% about the person handing you the cookie cutter, right? And it's like I'm afraid to let you bake a cake because I'm afraid my cookie cutter won't work for that cake. And it's like that's 100% about the person that's saying it, and it's just it works for a time, right? Just like when you try a new version of a narcotic, it works. It gets you high.
It's like a band-aid approach or something, you know?
100%. 100%. And that's why when you listen to drug addicts or, even a high performers, like it's very similar what it does to your brain. It's like they're always chasing that first high, right? When somebody's a billionaire, they're always chasing that high they got from their first million. And
Mm.
because you can't duplicate it, and they're trying to duplicate it in a sense of, as opposed to, hey, I like this rope, so I'm going to tie this rope together. So stop looking for a longer rope and use the rope that you have to extend it. Because even if it's only a 2 foot rope, at some point you're going to need those extra 2 feet. We don't know when, but I just think it's super important. Um, yeah, and I don't think they maliciously do it with cookie cutter, but what it comes down to is if you actually want more, then you have to not because um that's why I hate these new neighborhoods that are popping up everywhere where the houses all look the same.
Mm.
And some of that's just because it's who I am on the inside. So if I see a house, like I sure as I can't go into a house that looks the same as the other one. But it's the same thing, right? It's like I told my wife, I was like, when we get in a new place, the only thing I care about is I want the shower to be above my head so I don't have to bend over because I had to bend over for 35 years of my life. That's all I want. Like I want the shower like but if I go to a home like so there's no variance allowed there. And so that's just
Mhm. Mhm.
it's lazy, it's comfortable, it's whatever. And I've challenged people before, like coaches. I'm like, look, like, because one of the excuses is, well, I don't have the time. That's so hard. That's part of why I invented
Yeah,
what I did.
I get that. Yeah, I get
Yeah,
that.
that's part of why I invented
That's a very real
100%.
issue out there, right? Where
It
that's
it is real.
especially when you get 2 hours. I mean, we had it yesterday. I had 2 hours and 27 guys. I had
Yeah,
7 guys throw live to hitters.
yeah.
And there's I think it's picking time and place. Like it was going through my mind this morning because it's like I'm learning a new way
Hmm.
because respectfully, it's just the way I am. I'm a freshman coach. I'm watching how does the varsity coach run things. I want to see. I've
Hmm.
been around the game. I know how to do cutoffs and relays. I know how to
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
For me, one of my big things is when the ball's hit in the air. I hate when guys call ball. It just drives me crazy. But it goes from and I know exactly where it comes from. My college coach would say, "We all know it's a fucking ball. Who's going to catch it?" Right? And that's not how I say it necessarily, but that's how I learned it. And
Yeah.
it's like I want to hear, "I got it, I got it, I got it," and then I want to hear, "Take it, take it, take it," with anybody else that's around them, because if two guys say ball, it's the same exact thing, and you can't.
Yes.
It's hard to
Yes.
tell who says what.
Yep.
So, but now if I lose my stuff every time I hear somebody say that, it's different than if I actually have a teachable moment, and it's what we call time and place.
Yep. That's
Where it's
good.
like there's a time and place for things. There's a time and place for water bags. There's a time and place for PVCs. There's a time and place for throwing a softball. There's a time and place for clean fuegos, right? It's like all
Yeah.
these different things. But if I only have 2 hours with a guy, or not say with a guy, with a group of
Group, yeah.
guys, then it's going to be more generalized
Yeah.
initially
Has
until
to
we
be.
start to have those conversations you and I are talking about at the beginning, where it's like, okay, I know this guy needs a little bit of this,
Mm-hmm.
and this guy needs a little bit of this. And that's why for me, I'm a big note taker and a journaler, right? Where it's like I almost always have a notebook in my backpack, no matter where I go. I'm on a flight, I write stuff down. I'm at a camp, I write stuff down. With these kids, it's like, okay, I saw this. Right now, there's a million other things going on, so we're going to address this later. But I am going to take 2 to 3 minutes to have a conversation with this kid later
Yeah.
because it's in my notes.
Yeah. That's good.
But I understand the constraint of, I mean, time and space. Those are two things
It's fair.
that we're
Yeah.
trying to solve. As I mean, and that's why for me, I have quite a few guys that are helping us with this with the high school team, pro guys, college guys, guys that have coached in the past. So at a practice, you might have 5 coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Now all of a sudden you got 5 guys for those 18 kids
Yep.
versus one on 18.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes 2 guys have a hard time giving up
That's it.
control of things.
That's it right there.
Control,
That's
right?
it.
When it's like, so let's say you and I are running a practice. I trust you enough to say, hey, Cam's going to take the hitters. Hitters go with Cam. Now, we might have had a conversation before, and I say, hey, Cam, my guys have been really struggling with, I mean, man, they take a lot of 2-strike.
Yeah.
Huh. Can you talk to them about maybe a better approach when they get to
Yeah.
2-strike?
And that's
But
great.
other than that, I'm not going to tell you, hey, you got to tell them this and this, and this is my way, and this is the way it's done. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
dude, because what you tell those guys, half of them are going to get it, half of them aren't. And then maybe you're going to say it another way, and then the other half get it. And then there's still a few guys that are like you were talking about earlier, where he's like, is there any questions? And he's like, yeah,
I
I'm
don't get
not
it.
understanding. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's
And then
great.
all of a sudden it's like, okay, great. Because now the 3 other guys that didn't have the huevos to say they didn't get it got to hear it another way too,
That's right.
because this young man said, hey, I need help. And sometimes that's hard to do as a dude.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard even as a human, not just as a dude. Like I see it
Agreed.
with girls too, you know, because we both have daughters. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's hard to say, hey, I need help. Because
Agreed.
you gotta trust whoever you're asking
That's
for
it
help.
right there. That's good.
And then you gotta also, I guess, be willing to give up the fact that you think you're in control.
Yeah, that's right. That's so good. Well, and those are the founding things of where it starts, right? And where people have to look at stuff, right? And that's one of the things that I challenge guys a lot with, where it's like, hey, I get that. I get the time and space. I get the limitations. I get this. So if you want more, you're going to have to find more within what you have. And what that might take is, hey, I'm going to go take, you know, all the outfielders and we're going to go get pizza, or we're going to go do this, or we're going to go do whatever, to where you can kind of understand that a little bit better, right? And that's where, it kind of comes down to, again, are you complacent or not? Are you willing to do more, or are you just going to bitch about how you want more from other people? That's almost always what it comes down to, right? To where it's like, because most people won't even take notes. They won't even do that kind of stuff, right? To where it's like, that's an effort, right? Hey, I had this written down, whatever. You said this, so I wanted to come back to this conversation because I obviously didn't do a good job of explaining it how you needed to. Can we have a conversation? Kids in. I don't care if they're 30 or they're 6, they're in. And that's really, yeah, it's just a shift, right? It's the shift that needs to happen. And that's really why, I made what I made with this assessment thing I got too, where it's just like, hey man, if we can shortchange that a little bit, and make it more compact and get that stuff faster, it's like the limitations that we now have are less limiting. They're still limiting, but they're less limiting. And that's where it's just like, man, we gotta do that stuff. And I think the opportunity is, this generation, the world really is void of real relationship, real connection. And so we can complain about that. We can, all the things, and some of it would be fair. But we can either shift the way we do it, the way we connect, and as much as we can, right? Sometimes they're going to be able to a lot, and sometimes not. Everything else is in between. But if we'll shift that, it's really not our responsibility as mentors really hasn't changed a whole lot. It's
I'd
still the
say kind
same.
of to piggyback off you too, it's like, and I'm guilty of this in the past too, and I think it's how I've learned, but it's like sometimes, let's say I only have 2 hours to practice with guys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, man, we got to make sure we get a whole bunch of reps. But then we forget to talk about it. And it's like, I steal it from Tom House, who he always called it accordion style coaching, where it's like, bring them in, talk about what you're going to do, then send them out. And then when the next time comes, bring them in, talk to them, send them back out. And it's kind of that I've taken that approach, but I think sometimes what we get guilty of is like, hey, even in lessons,
Yeah.
where it's like, I like to keep, hey, we've only got 2 hours here. We're going to, their first 30 minutes is on their own. The last 30 minutes is by themselves. We get an hour. And sometimes it's like, we just get rolling. And then other times I'm reminded where it's like, hey, let's check in on a few things. Let's ask, how's this? How's this? How's this? And maybe not just how's your fastball, how's your curveball, but like, hey, how's your home life? How's your diet? How you sleeping? All
Right.
that kind of, just those small things that you and I both know are never small. But
Yeah.
we call them small things, but they're actually big things.
Yeah.
They
They
just
are.
all have.
They're
It's the
seeds, right?
summation.
They're
That's a good way to
seeds.
say it.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're not a tree yet, but they're more potent than the tree in some ways, right? So it's like that's just seeds instead of trees, right? And yeah, man, it's so good. And it's just the posturing of it. And realistically, changing the posturing is not changing it to perfection. It's changing it to awareness. So now when the mistakes happen, we can choose, oh crap, man, I botched that. So now I'm going to enter into more relationship with this person and say, hey, right here, botched it. Here's who screwed it up. Me. How can I, whatever, right? Or man, I missed that on this. Like people don't ask those questions, right? People don't, oh man, I should have slowed down there. Or I should have asked about this, or I need to remind myself. Like, that's okay. That's the whole goal. That means it's registering and it's not just a
I
piece of
think it's
information.
delivery system too, right? Where it's like, because we had our first practice or whatever yesterday, and there was a few errors during the game, right? And it's like, if I'm screaming and yelling at a guy and it's the first time I've seen him,
Yeah.
versus I'm like, if you make a physical error for me, it's completely different than a mental error, right? Like a physical error, shortstop picks up the ball and he one hops the first baseman and he fails to scoop it. Okay. But if you were napping and you weren't, you failed to get ready for the pitch, or your footwork was, any of the stuff that's more controllable, then hey, we can approach that. But at the same time, if I can come at you like, I liked this, but I dislike this, or hey, this worked, but this was off, at least it draws that line and they can be like, okay, I can build or set my hat on this thing that I did right, and then next time I'm going to do better at this, and then the whole thing comes together.
I love
But
that.
I was thinking about it even yesterday, because it's like there's been times where it's like, I've coached with guys, or I've been coached by guys, where it's like one mistake just makes them explode and they
Yeah.
just go off. But then, being around them and knowing, it's like that just means they have stuff going on
Yep.
outside of here. There's
Yep.
no way that one ground ball that went through that kid's leg makes you lose your whatever on them. It's
Hey,
like, hey,
something's
or
going on, Doug.
or grab a glove and go out there, because I took
Yeah.
about 50 ground balls at shortstop yesterday too. And I remember the challenges of it. And I remember the feeling of, because my buddy Seth's out there and there's like 6 of us. We're all taking ground balls. And he's like, anybody scared right now? And we're like, a little bit, yeah. I mean, because the guys at the plate raking the ball at you. I mean, the field's really nice, but you still get bad hop. There's
hmm
these things that I think we've talked about all the time, but guys get removed from that.
Yeah.
When's the last time you went and took ground balls at shortstop versus just, hey, the techniques and you know how it's done, but it's different when you do it.
Yeah. It's
Or
good.
like, hey, you guys need to eat really good. And then coach is eating cheeseburgers, or whatever we talked about it last time, but walking your talk, right? Like if
You
you're
have to.
if you're gonna speak it, you should walk it, right?
Yeah, agreed.
Talk it, walk it. On now, better who that, better who there.
You have to, man. You have to, and it's a different level of buy-in. It's absolutely a different level of buy-in. Well, man, you're awesome. Thank you for your time as always. It's very valuable, and I know that. So,
You're
um,
awesome.
yeah, man, I love you, and yeah, I know you got some stuff to do. So, I'll holler at you later this week too, just to catch up and love on you a little bit. So, but it's
Lots of
gold
love
as
for you
always.
too, my brother. Heck yeah.
All right, dude. I love you, man. I'll
All
talk to you
right,
soon.
God bless you, my friend. Love you too.
Okay, brother.
Peace, Doug.
Thank you so much for watching. I'm sure you were able to get a lot out of that. So because of that, make sure that you share this, right? Make sure that you put it out on social media, on your stories. Make sure that you subscribe, give us a 5-star review, because our passion is to see the game grow, and our passion is to see you become the best baseball or softball player that you can. So go ahead and do that for us, and I can't wait to see you on the next episode.